We good, yeah?
We're good. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, not bad, man. Busy day, busy day. Obviously, I think a lot of you guys know that I recently switched jobs in real
Yeah.
life, that is. So yeah, just been busy, but just doing what we need to do, what we can, just to keep it going. But yeah, can't complain, man.
I mean, because like other than I mean, like you're kind of a work beast, right? Let's just like call it like it is. You've been absolutely nailing the community management on the one hand, but like at the other hand, like you also have like other like full-time activities.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, I've been very lucky. Obviously, in my last job, in real life, my boss is actually a DGen as well. He goes
Nice.
by Moonboy in You on X. But yeah, I mean, he's cool. He actually allowed me to, spend part of my work day, um, doing stuff in the community. Being online on Discord as well. He's a
Nice.
DeGods holder as well.
I
He's got
know.
four decent. I think he's got one flaw and three decent gods. But but yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky to actually be able to have that time during the day to work on other stuff. So yeah, I think that's basically where I started, and obviously, I think I got into DeGods must have been close to 3 years now. Um, and it's been the same ever since. I was with him, I was working under him 4 years ago. So yeah, yeah, very lucky to have him.
I mean, like it goes both ways, though. It goes both ways, though, right? Because he must be he must be quite lucky to have you as well, because like I've been drooling over the fact like the way you handle like the community management, right? I mean, if people think to themselves like, hey, like it's been so bad, right? I mean, like we're talking about like the price action. If you're looking at the community perspective to it, right, and the way that was being handled, I think unanimously people have been a fan of you as a person, but like also like the way that you've handled the community management, right? Like, how was that like for you in like the past 3 years?
No, it's good, man. It's good. Honestly, I think when I first started out, obviously, it was very different time, just in terms of what everyone is doing in the space as well. Um, Obviously, I think back then meme coin wasn't even a thing, so most people would spend time on the server, and I was just a regular holder back then, and obviously the culture is a little different, and we have separate chats for youths, and obviously for people to try to get a god, OTC, not on any marketplaces, they had to go into BST, and you know I think a lot of people from back then they can tell you, that was not the best experience because a lot of people were shocked, and when the project was doing well, people do have some sort of an ego, um, sort of like looking down to people, etc. But that was 3 years ago. Obviously, very different now. Even back then, before I came on as CM, I think it was shifting a lot because people were basically, I think they were too busy elsewhere. People just weren't really focusing on NFTs. And prior to that, obviously, we were on Telegram. We didn't even have a Discord. Um, but yeah, I think it's very different. I think if you look far enough into the last couple of years, but really, I think things took a good turn when Chill actually reopened Discord. I think that's basically when we started to really transition into this new era.
I think so too. So let's maybe let's start off strong. Let's like ask like the hard questions strong, right? And
Yeah.
that would be like, I mean, like be honest with me, right? Like because like you're part of the team, but like we've had like the conversations to where you earlier mentioned how like the team is kind of their own thing a little bit, and like the community management like equally is like another thing, which are kind of connected but like also separate in like the same kind of way, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the CMs are things. Obviously, it's very silo. It's very, very much like an individual contributor. And I guess in a sense that's okay because obviously the team is put together, um, from the original era, and I think whoever was left running the show, obviously Pasta and Chill, and the rest of the teams, most of them were actually made up of tech guys and designers. So it was the way, sort of like, to keep it running, the day to day. Obviously, updates in different aspects, which we later saw, that came in the form of badges and profiles. Um, I guess as the CM, I worked with what I had, just in terms of, what was available around us. Obviously, the brand itself has always been strong, um, but I think when I came on, it was more to do with the fact that we had a mix of new energy and people who just stuck around basically. So
Mm,
we went from there because if you look back to when we reopened Discord, I think it was the same day as Magic Eden launching their own token. Um, so that very same day, I think a lot of active holders today, that's when they first bought that's when they first bought the NFT in DeGods or in use because they had that stimmy. Um, Equally, you had people from, way back, still buying
true.
at that point as well. That was a fun day because I think that might have been one of the it must have been one of the biggest airdrop in recent years after Jupe. The
Yeah.
other ones between Pengu, I think those sort of I think they were quite close together. But yeah, that was a decent drop, and it allowed a lot of people who were waiting, who were sidelined, but at the same time, people who's been around to get the god they always wanted. But yeah, I think that's where it started to take a turn because on that very day, a lot of new energy came into the chat, and for however long they stayed, people come and go. But
Sure.
while they were here, it wasn't bad.
No, I get it, right? Plus, like, I think like that. I mean, that has been like the depression era, right? Between now and then, like that's probably been like the most like depressed state of the market, to where like yeah, like you have like a bunch of like hardcore still within it. Like some people might like just buy the ones NFTs they always wanted to, but like at the same time, right, like in like the entirety of the market, like it's still very much like yo, NFTs are never going to be a thing anymore. There was not the same kind of positive outlook as there might be like right here right now. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I think honestly, like, to an extent, is right because if you look at how things were done, or like what happened in the last run or last cycle, like, if that's never gonna happen today, in terms of the money involved, the volume involved, and if you go on, say, like, some old account, people rapping, punks, or the apes, when they went to events like, Ape Fest, for example, those
Yeah,
stuff don't happen anymore. Equally, you don't get institutions like Kraken, you know, leveraging NFTs to, as sponsors. They put it behind a Formula One car just because it was cool. Um,
yeah,
'Cause I think, overall, I think everyone knows that crypto, just in general, it's very much sort of like an attention-oriented economy, right? And it's just as simple as the attention is not in NFTs anymore. And where we are today, I think it's basically the bottom. Whoever, left standing by the end of this, communities who are still active, you know, those communities are the only one who have a chance to make it out of this, alive basically, because everyone is struggling. It's no secret because obviously royalties get paid in the underlying token price. So with Solana being at $80, no one is making enough money to cover the cost. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say this is probably, as bad as it ever gets, unless Solana keeps tanking. But but at the same time, there's another side of the coin, isn't it? Like everything becomes a lot cheaper. Collecting is a lot easier now, for those who are willing to. So the only sort of like the only thing we can control is sort of like our effort as a community, as a team,
Sure.
just in terms of
Sure.
showing up every day. And for me, I think the way I see it is that that's the only way to make it forward, is to keep showing up. Because, I mean, otherwise, you probably don't need to be in NFTs otherwise. There are a lot of, alternatives for you to spend money on. But I think those who are willing to spend still, they see the value in the community. And that's the only sort of like value in any project right now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know what? Like, whenever like whatever goes up must come down as well, and oh boy, did it come down, right?
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
yeah.
I mean, sorry.
No, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, 100% right, because it doesn't matter how you look at it, I guess. If you determine it in the underlying token value, or even USD value, that's just mad, because you see people like Justin Bieber spending millions on an ape.
Yeah.
That USD is, it doesn't matter to him, but just in terms of the asset itself, it's never gonna be valued the same. Not in a very long time, I don't think. But that's part of the history. That's part of the law, isn't it?
I mean, it's true. Plus, like, it's just like peak market like sentiment and like investor psychology, right? Like, um, it definitely was some kind of a tulip mania with the gods, and at some time it imploded. But like the same happened to like Pokemon cards, and like we don't like yap about that too much. Um, don't mind me asking, from your experience, right? Like, what was like the mood in your perception, both like within the team and within the community when Frank left, like which is nearly a year ago?
Yeah, yeah. I think, I guess within the team, some people already knew ahead, before the actual announcement, that we saw on X. Um,
Yeah.
because essentially well, Frankie, he you know, passed on the power, or sort of like the day to day, to Pastor and Chill, way before the announcements. So I guess like, well, I'm guessing here because I wasn't on board then, um, but I'm guessing, by the time that they know, or sort of like by the time the announcement came, most of them would already have known. And they already had an idea of what they wanted to do after Frankie left officially. Um, but well, I say left, but I mean, stepped down. Obviously, he still has his bags, etc. But you know, just not him being in charge or running the show. Um, as for the community, obviously, you always get the two side arguments, right? Most people, want him because for what he has done.
Yeah.
Um, and I was actually one of the people who said DeGods was, it has always been bigger than Frank himself. Um, obviously, he created DeGods, and he has basically set everything up to to the top, um, because he was so locked in. Um, but at the same time, like in any business, or any product that has been built, there's a period of time where from inception to peak to decline. Like him as a founder, he he was putting in so much effort in his early days for him to enjoy the success. But at the same time, like we move with the time. So
Yeah,
when the market changed to more trading oriented, whether it's memes or perhaps whatever, he pivoted, and that's fair. Do you know what I mean? From what I've seen, because he has already created something so big, that can go on without him, in my opinion. That was my perspective. And at the same time, a lot of people think that he was washed. He just doesn't have what it takes to take way back up, basically. Um, but at the same time, it's the same in every community. If you go into any NFT communities now, if you go into OK Bears, or if you go to Lats, etc., etc., there will always be a whiner, and there will always be people who's bullish, regardless of the condition. So
sure,
that's
sure.
what I've seen, and honestly, I don't think that is is the worst that Frankie stepped down. The time that he did, at least. I mean, bottom line is, it would have been a shame if he was willing to keep working on DeGods, but chose not to. Do you know what I mean? So if he was willing to, and he was working, he was locked in, then I'm sure it would turn out great as well. But at the same time, do we really need a Frank that is not 100% committed to DeGods? I don't think so.
Well, you know what? Like, this is the truth to these things, right? Like, whether we would like it to be the case or not, like, you cannot hold someone to gunpoint and be like, you're gonna work for this, right? Like, we all have our own will. And if the guy decided for himself for whatever reason, like, hey, like, he's out, then it is what it is, right? Whether we like it or not, like, the opinion there does not matter. Like, I'll tell you this much, like, I think, like, within, like, the DGOTS community, he's like very much like a loved individual, right?
Yeah, yeah, for
Still
sure.
definitely more loved than hated. And then you would have, I think, probably a 10 to 20% who viciously hates him. um, but yeah, it is what it is. What I'm more like interested in, like, right here, right now, let's say we go back in time. Frank just like put the message out, like, it got covered by like news outlets, etc., etc. What was that like for you in that moment? Because like that must have been like quite challenging.
Sorry, I think my connection was lost. What was the question?
So, like, what was it like back in like the moment in time when Frank announced the departure, and you were the one who was managing the community? So, like, what was that like for you? Was it challenging? Was it not challenging? Did you have to work over hours? Like, what was it like? What were your experiences like?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, part of me always knew that was gonna happen, even when I first came on, because you see it from his tweets. you know it basically shifted from a DeGods maxi to on chain, right? Whatever that was hot
Yeah,
at that moment. So I guess like everyone knew that he was slowly sort of like moving his focus towards everything else. But for me, like I didn't really find it that tough, to be honest, because I guess I've always been overly bullish in DeGods as a brand. um
true.
and I've always think like DeGods is way bigger. But at the same time, the tricky part was obviously DeGods as a server, is alive 24/7. Whatever hours people, you tap in, there are people. And
True.
I guess the most sort of like tricky part that we had to deal with, or me personally, is to repeat myself all the time. Not
Mm.
necessarily all the time, right? But every
Yeah, yeah.
every other, say, every half hour, you would have someone who come in and be like, oh yo, I just saw Frank left. Is that true? And you know, I basically had to say yes, he's just a community member now. He stepped down over and over and over again. Um, but you know that's I wouldn't say that's tough or sort of like annoying. It's just that's part of the job, and just the way people are. Obviously, everyone has their own opinion. Um,
Sure.
and I guess like the worst part is that sometimes you have to entertain the idea that people were throwing at you. Um, and at the same time, it's never nice to read stuff like, oh, DeGods is gonna rock, etc. These offline. Um, but at the same
True.
time, like I guess after a while, you do realize like every single time, people who were flooding, right? They ended up leaving the community sooner or later, and that's okay. I think like eventually it filters out all the negative energy that people were bringing in because overall as a community we were left with people with the right sort of like attitude or outlook. People weren't expecting the moon.
Sure.
Um, but that was a tricky period because obviously it's every day, it's constant. People buy DeGods and they come in and be like, oh, where's Frank? Then when they didn't hear what they wanted to hear, they they sell it into bits, and that's okay too. Just part of the process. But I think that that part of community management I do not miss.
I get that, right? Like, and this is like, it's very interesting because I don't think like anyone really shines the light on like what it's like for the team, because like you guys kind of had to deal with it, right? Like, I'll also just like say it out in the open, like I was also like very like I was questioning like, hey, are we about to get fucked over or not? Right?
Yeah.
Like it's still like the NFT landscape, and like I'm not gonna just pretend that like I was not worried. Like at some points, like I was worried myself, and it just like takes like a little bit and muscle memory, if you will, to realize like, hey, like it's not shut like the servers are not shutting down, people are still like putting in the work, right? Like you've been going at it like every single day, etc., etc. um so yeah, like I do think though, like being like truthfully transparent here, I do think it works both ways to where equally that DeGods is like equally blessed. I'm not talking about like that moment in time with like a very, very, very good community who is diehard on the art, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think, like, without anyone like in the community today, big or small, everyone matters. I think, but without all of these existing holders, obviously some are a lot more invested. In obviously the whales. Um,
Sure.
if even one of them decided to basically revisit the blur days, we would have been fucked because you know when you see one person self, that brings another set of questions. And honestly, how many people are really ready to sweep or to pick up the slack, when you see 20, 30 NFTs getting dumped into bits, you know and obviously that
Yeah.
snowballs as well, right? Especially in
Yeah.
this market. Do you know what I mean? Like, people who are buying NFTs today are crazy, but in a good way. But honestly, there are better investment vehicles than NFTs. So we're just buying for the art, and we're
Sure.
buying for the vibes and community.
I mean, talk to me about that one, right? Because like I've been like this is like a part I've been like actually like um covering quite a lot in like the market streams, etc., etc. I go through like many Solana NFTs, right? Like
Hmm.
obviously all of the blue chips, all of like the and like the ones which I believe are interesting, right? Like we'll see what they're gonna turn out like. There's just like one common or like one exceptional kind of what's I think like let's call it a feature on DeGods people, and that's DeGods holders are absolutely mental when it comes down to like how they value their grills,
Oh yeah. I
right? Like,
I think at the same time I think that that is sort of like sort of it was breed in the BST days, I think,
mm,
because people love to trade talk, right? But at the same time, everyone wants to come out ahead, and even today, you will see people casually just dropping their NFTs, in the trade channel, and just to say it's not for sales. Do you know what I mean? Because like people literally take the piss in a sense where
it's
they just wanted
true.
to flex.
It's true. And I'll tell you this much, like it feels good flexing this shit, right? I mean, like Doug, like just looking at because like let's just call it like it is, and this needs to be studied as well, right? You are a hardcore collector in like the very brand like which is paying you out on a monthly basis, right?
Sorry, well, I didn't hear the question. Sorry.
No, I'm just like confirming with you, like you are a hardcore collector in like the very brand which is basically paying your monthly salary.
I mean, yeah, they do pay me to be CM, but I wouldn't call myself a collector, to be honest. Because honestly, compared to some of these guys in the community, I'm nowhere near. Like, I think across the last year, because obviously, I have access to the community account, and
Yeah.
every now and then, when someone buys a crazy god, I always try to post that as well, and link to their profile, and compared to the amount of money these people spend, honestly, like you have people like Cram who just bought the only hell background asset, you know, with him having such a massive bag already, like those are the true collectors.
Wait, who bought what?
Cram, wait, hold on,
Not
let me send
Kremrock?
it to you.
Yeah,
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 he bought the
yeah.
asset the other day, or was it yesterday, I think.
Yeah,
He
and
bought the
such a
only
sweet
one.
deal,
I
right?
know.
But this is like the interesting part though, right? Like it was considered like a cheap or like a fairly good deal because it was quote unquote, and I shit you not, only 6 to 7x the floor price, and it was an amazing one, right? Like the only acid hell background, so good, like absolutely an amazing piece. But like this is also like what I'm getting at is that this community is drooling over whatever is considered like some of like the better pieces within the collection.
Oh yeah, like honestly, the community is built different, and like if you look at Krams as an example, he has got 43 DeGods on sale and one on Bitcoin, 67 units, and he didn't even buy it when the floor was cheap. A lot of them, he bought when we were way higher, so it's not like someone with money coming in near the bottom and spending a great amount of soul. This is someone who spent literally thousands and thousands of soul across the whole journey in the last couple of years. Like it. I, I honestly don't know how many communities out there actually have people like him. You know,
True.
because I think it's one thing buying at current price. Obviously, it's relatively cheap compared to what it was, but it is still what, like $400-$500 for a floor in today's world, and honestly, 5 SO goes a long way in a lot of countries. Do you know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah.
people who are willing to basically fork that out, like why are they spending 5 SO on DeGods and not whatever, alternative there are, or go out for a nice meal, etc., etc. And what it comes down to it is basic, is conviction, right? For whatever
Yeah.
reason. And yeah, I mean, we're very lucky to have people like, a lot of people like him within the space.
No, I hear you. It's and it's funny to see, or like funny, like it's interesting to see that there's a portion of like these guys who have been just solid as a rock and who have not really moved like any assets with like price fluctuations on the one hand. It's also like really interesting to see like the new influx of people we're seeing, right? Look at Yang, look at Jim Jammer.
Oh my God, Jimmy, yeah, fuck it now.
I mean, we have, I think, right? Like I think like this is some of like the most hardcore community within the space. And you know what? Like if it weren't for like the time in the market, I would say like if any other, let's say like an average NFT Discord would look at this like kind of behavior, you would say like it's probably like the heart of the bull market because like everyone is happy, everyone is having a good time, and it's just alive and kicking.
Yeah, yeah. I would think like, obviously the price does not reflect on how strong community is. I
Sure.
don't think it ever has. Um, but I think, and that's why I'm so convinced that whatever community stays alive, you know, throughout this period of time, it's gonna make it in the end because we need people like this, and it's good to see people are willing to go so far. I think like take Jimmy. I think he literally powered through the leaderboard in number of badges. He's on 42 now, and the sort of like the length he would go through to get these items, even and it's not just in NFTs. I know he spent, not he spent quite a lot of money to get that jacket in real life, the Hamilton one. And
Sure.
so he was willing for a very long time as well, because he has been such a good sort of like, well, we saw it from the side, but what a run that he had, just picking up a lot of good items along the way up.
It's crazy, right?
It
So
is, and
I'm
yeah.
no, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I was gonna say like, and honestly, I think as a community, we are lucky to have a lot of different types of people coming in.
Oh
Obviously
yeah.
you have these hardcore collectors. At the same time, you have the OG Pixel, who basically held through every single, every single crypto event in the last cycle. And at the same time, you have people like Alice, who bring these, inactive people. I don't know how he finds them, but he always manages to find, mythic gods, really cool combo, and just sort of like bring them back to life, whether they're from on Soul, or whether they're on ETH. And the community needs a lot of these energies, because
True.
every time he manages to find an inactive, that is bringing back a growl into the circulation. And I would never, you know, look down on anyone who sell, because it's always a good thing. When NFTs are getting redistributed, it means you're making someone's experience good, because they are getting the god that they wanted, instead of, oh, he's papering.
Oh, for
And
sure.
just, yeah, that's one way to look at it, I think. And honestly, it's a very good mix of people. Then obviously, with what Pasta's been doing with the badges and dusties, it it does a lot more than just regular, exercise every month. Because when profile first came out, everyone sort of like, basically walk down memory lane. What sort of badges I can unlock, because I was there, because I took part in that event. I got accepted into youth lists. A lot of different time and place from the past, and that that refreshed a lot of people's sentiment almost, and it was almost like a reset, and that got us going for a long time as well, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. I mean, like, it's just like interesting infrastructure, right? And it's for whoever has been like part of the community. I think like it's a nice trip down to memory lane. I'm not sure. Like, I need to call a spade a spade. I'm not sure if it's going to be like the kind of infrastructure that might bring in back the masses, right?
Mm.
But I do think it's definitely like a nice to have for anyone who is a collector in things, such as myself, such as you, to just like have like a better experience overall.
Yeah, yeah, I think like at the same time, and this is just from my perspective, is
Yeah,
that it's more important to look after what you have first before you
sure.
start working on bringing in the others. Because if everyone in the community is having a good time, they can then tell people around them who's not here yet about what we're doing, why they're having so much fun, and
That's a
that's
fair
how
point.
I think that's how onboarding goes. And you know, people are never gonna no one is ever gonna look up Pasta on X and be like, he seems like a cool guy. I'm gonna buy the collection he's in. People are more likely to come in because they seem cool. My friend, I heard about them from my friend. They're giving away these items in real life, and these are cool. Some people just like them. Some people like the art. Some people like to have a place to hang out. For whatever reason, people came in for different reasons, but at the same time, you know, we need to get the community right first before we start worrying about, what's out there. Because I think as long as we sort it out ourselves internally, the rest will come surely.
Sure. I mean, like, and you know what? Like, to your point, I do kind of believe we're there, right? Like, I do kind of believe that the only, I mean, like, I've seen pretty much like all of the other Discord servers. I think like DeGods is probably the healthiest. Must say though, and it's not because like I'm shilling my own backs. I mean, like, heck, like I got more DeGods than I have mids, but I would say that the mid server have been like really comparable. But it must be said that they recently had like some kind of a on-chain event which triggered that.
Sure.
But I think it's quite noticeable that DeGods like kind of slipped over banana peel, and like even though Frank left, and even though so many bad things and bad sentiment was out there, there's just this hardcore community, and let's just call it like it is. You're at the center of it.
I mean, I would like to think so, but at the same time, I think people who are buying in now, say compared to mids, I mean, I'm not in there, so I'm just basically chatting off my ass here. But at
Sure.
the same, I think like people are on a different stage in their journey, almost, right? People who are in DeGods now, they have been around. They sort of like. And I always say this to hype people up is that all roads lead back to DeGods, simply because it is a little bit more. We've been around for longer. There are people who, like yourself, basically, you know, one of the more sort of like active DeGods holder, but at the same time who's out there in other servers. You know, I think like there's whenever you see someone like yourself or other like Pixel, I think he minted a bunch of rogues when they first came out as well, and you get people like LA Gen, Legend in Lads, you know these people go around carrying the DeGods brand as well.
True.
So like
Yeah.
and I don't want to sound overly bullish, but even like Frankie, even if he doesn't work on DeGods, as long as he's got his PFP on, and as long as he stays relevant in the space, he will always be known as Frank DeGods. And that itself is also carrying the brand, and it's so much bigger. And that's why I've always been saying like everyone matters, and DeGods is way bigger than any single one of us. And I think
True.
that shows. Whereas in sort of like more recent mint or newer project, y- you still get people going in thinking I'm gonna mint this, and I'm gonna get a 10x, and I'm gonna make a bag. Like people are still after the gains, as profit, and that's fair, I guess. At one point we
Sure.
were we were all doing the same, just not with DeGods and Utes. But I think there's a portion of NFT buyers that are still after that moonshot. Do you know what I mean? And it's always easier to do that with a new project because you get to mint it at a lower price. It's still relatively fresh, so it can catch on. It does get a lot more hyped, for a period of time. So you can't fault people for building and wanting to make something new. Um, but I would think that's also why people are sometimes arguing or sort of like fudding, saying like, why aren't the prices going up, right away? Because I think that there's a different part of the NFT buying journey to that, and for us it was way before. To I suppose some of these newer communities, they get people who maybe just started out collecting, maybe just trying to gamble, for whatever reason. So I think, yeah, I mean, not because you know DeGods is not, or not just because DeGods is DeGods, but at the same time it's because those people within DeGods, we have already been around long enough to you know not hold our fingers and hope for a moonshot and a 10x in a new mint. So I think that plays a part as well.
No, I get what you're saying. It's interesting. I don't think that the audience is kind of expecting like anything out of new mints right right now, right?
Sometimes, yeah. I,
I
I, I guess,
mean,
yeah. But at the same time, it's an experience, though, isn't it? Like, how
for
how
sure.
how often do you really get to, you know, and at the same time, right? It's doing it together as well. Do you know what I mean? Every single time someone mint, a new project, it gets spread around in the chat. Be like, oh, have you minted this? Have you seen that? Have you seen the art, etc. etc. And within our chat, whether that is, that guy who spams every single day, or even like, when Mid, was about to mint, it was what was talked about. And even recently, right, with Backpack, they were getting so much hate, and a lot of us jumped onto it and say like,
True.
let's show some support. That
Yeah.
that's sort of like collectively, as an NFT space, people are actually in this shit together, but a lot of people don't necessarily see that or realize that. But it's part of that journey. It's about going in with your friends, or with people like you talk to every single day. It's that experience as well. And you compare, oh, what did you mint? Did you pull a one of one? These sort of things. They all sort of like all come together, collectively as one big community.
Well, I mean, like that's the thing, right? I think you can basically just like wave or like spread your wings within like Solana NFT landscape, but like at the end of the day, this is how I see it, right? DGOTS is definitely home, and it's not because like it's my biggest bag, but like it's the bag of conviction, and I have like many friends with like a very similar conviction in that one Discord server, right? Like as Pixel Rainbow said it, you can quite easily go anywhere in the world and like have a steak dinner with like any one of these guys and have a good time.
Yeah, 100%. I think a while back someone DM'd me. just because they saw that I was in Hong Kong, and his parents were flying to Australia, I think, and they had a stopover in Hong Kong, and he was just basically asking like, oh, what could they do? Where would be a good spot, and that's sort of like, obviously we don't really talk about utilities in the sense where people benefited, financially, but at the same time, people underestimate the sort of like the community, how spread it is, how wide it is, and in general how friendly people are. Because I think a lot of you guys who show up every day, are probably, closer to me than some of my friends in real life, because I get to talk to you guys every single day, and
True.
and we've never met. Do you know what I mean? Like that, and people sometimes take that for granted as well, because they
True.
just assume, you know, it's like the earlier this week, obviously Toppers, he sold his Third Eye Champ, and for the longest time, he showed up every day just talking about OnlyFans and going to the gym. That's his routine. When he first came back, well, this is the guy who minted DeGods, went through the whole cycle and didn't sell, and for a period of time, he would come in every single day at my time, midnight, and say, oh, the chat is that for 30 seconds, we're done. That was his way to show up every day to take the piss. And honestly, like, ever since he sold, you know, I do feel the difference, or something has changed,
Mm,
like the way I feel. Do you know what I mean? Because over a period of time, if you see someone every single day, and I could almost I used to be able to count on him, to show up every
yeah,
day
I
and
hear
and
you.
and say his line. You know, equally, I know the schedule of some of you guys, like Rutan. He wakes up middle of the night to take a piss, and then he would check to see if something is worth sniping, and that was his routine, and that's something that I know intimately, and over a period of time, you really get to know people, and you don't really get to do that elsewhere, I don't think.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's kind of weird the kind of connection you would create with like many of these individuals, right? You know each other on like some kind of a deeper level, right? For better or for worse, right?
Yeah,
There
for
are
sure.
some people I'm sure you don't want to know like that, but
No,
like it's
100%.
it's interesting, right? Like it's part of the journey, right? It really is.
Yeah, I mean, people wonder why, as a community, we are still relevant. That's because they are outside. Because if you're in, you would know. Because
Yeah,
we have seen people getting promoted in real life. We have seen people, having their first kid in real life. People adopting puppies. People just part of their days. Part of their lives. People share like personal things, part of their day. Like, and that sort of those sort of like context or substance, they created such a strong bond that only people within the community would understand, because that's what they experience. But you're never really gonna understand unless you actually come in and spend the time, and try to understand what people are doing in here.
it's hard to explain. Like I'll tell you this much. Like whenever like I yap on this subject, buy yourself a ute and see for yourself, right? Like a ute gets you into like the same community as a DeGods. See for yourself. Like they're super cheap, and if you don't like it, just floor it. Easy,
Oh
right? But
yeah,
like
hundred
DeGods is
percent.
definitely special. Um, so Doug, first of all, like I'm gonna respect your deadline, right? You only have like 10 more minutes. I wanted to basically go out on like a two-way streak, right? Like first of all, I'm gonna make life like really hard for you. You will have to choose a winner.
No,
Whoever
no, you're joking. There's no way, man.
or I'll choose it. I don't care, right? But like, we'll have to choose someone who has tagged like three people and is following the both of us.
Yeah, I mean there gotta be quite a few, right? How many people actually left a comment tagging their friends.
It's gonna be like a fair amount, I believe. Let's see.
Oh Jesus! Honestly, I'm gonna leave that with you. I think.
Sure. I'll okay, I'll tell you this much. Would you rather, like, you'll have to choose this. Would you rather have me choose someone within the DeGods community or outside?
Ooh, that's tough. Cause honestly, um, huh, that's a good question actually. Cause obviously, I think if it goes to someone within the community, they wouldn't they wouldn't actually sell that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
but at the same time, it's always nice to bring someone in.
It's true.
Is there any way to find a holder tagging someone who's not yet a holder? Or
Uh
is that too tricky?
that's gonna be like a little hard. Um
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I can do, which would basically cover like all of this. I can, if you want, right? This will probably like, am I mistaken, or like you also had like another kind of a raffle kind of thing for like
For the doggos, yeah.
for the doggo batch holders?
Yes.
If you are going to like do that, I can check whether I can see like some community members which I would expect to not floor. Um, is
Yeah,
that a
yeah, I
middle
think that's
ground?
fair. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely fair, I think. Obviously, I've always said, doggos on top because that's the way to gauge, who's active enough to get into top 100. I
True.
know there are a lot of people who's on the way there, but yeah, this is not gonna be the last giveaway for the doggos anyway, and you don't lose the badge once you're in. So so yeah, I mean, I'll do the doggo one, and you can give it away at your direction.
Sure. I mean, before we go there though, um, I know like I don't want to be putting you in an uncomfortable position, just like not like any more than I just did, right? I know like you're the community team. You are not within like the team itself. I mean, like there's like a small like separation there. Is there something you believe like people should be looking out for in whatever time frame or whatever? Like, is there something you can just like without spilling the beans, spill the beans like a little bit, or are your lips sealed and you're like, I cannot yap anything on that?
I mean, I can't exactly say what was discussed, and what was mentioned, but
Sure.
I think the bottom line, I'm gonna say, like, the bottom line is at least get yourself a use. If you're not a holder, if you are already a
Ooh.
holder, do not over leverage yourself into having to sell off your bag. Um, Bottom line is, I think we will always be relevant, and pasta and chill, they do have a vision that require a lot of time to execute everything, in sort of like in their mind. um, they haven't just created a system or a community just to let it run by itself. There are stuff that they do want to do, and they are working on it. But I can't really say how long it's gonna take or what exactly it will be. But I
Sure.
think the brand itself, the community itself, should be a good enough reason to at least hold a youth at the moment.
Oh hell yeah. Okay, last but not least, I'm gonna give you three letters and you tell me which one you like the best. C, F, or H.
Let's go for H.
H. Well, Henry, there you go, brother. You won the Ute.
Yo,
Um,
congrats.
congrats, brother. Actually, um, Oh, there you go. Like again, like he tunes in like quite often. Uh, it would be like very surprising if he would not, if he would floor it. Henley, I will actually ban you from the stream. The streets will know. No one will ever like you, and your significant other will dump you if you would dump this youth.
Honestly,
All jokes
we
aside,
would know. We would know, Henry.
we would know. um, I mean, like, dog, that's it for now, man. Like, we're well, like, within like the timing of things. I really appreciate you coming in, man. Like, DeGods don't do like too many like public appearances anymore, but like, it's been fun.
No, yeah, of course, man. Pleasure's all mine. And if we do need a part two later on, let me see what I can do. But yeah, really happy that I came on, man.
I mean, like, I think like the we actually had like a crazy kind of people tuning in, like 195, which is that's a lot for like we haven't been like online for like too long, or like we haven't been live for too long. Maybe like if you'd ever want to go on, you know what could be fun if we go browse through like the whatever is like on the secondary markets, right? I think like that's actually like quite interesting, and people might be like very interested to hear your take on that, but like more for later, really.
Yeah, for sure. That'll make a really fun part two, I think. And I think for the next episode almost, let's try to do it later my time as well. So like closer to US, just so they don't miss out. Obviously, I know it's hard to find a time to accommodate. With me being in Hong Kong, and
Sure.
the rest of the world is quite a lot behind me. Um, so yeah, let's try to do that next time, I guess.
I hear you, man. Like it's like a personal struggle of mine. It's always like always someone is like missing out. Like it's either Asia, it's either Europe time, Asian time, or like the Americas, and it's the worst. It never gets better. I'm still struggling with like the balancing, like those kind of things. So like that's why I'm doing like three streams a day occasionally.
Yeah, it's,
Uh,
it's tough, man. I respect you for like showing up every single day and across different time zone. Because I think when you spoke with Candy Apple, it was late for you, I think. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, I appreciate the work you do, man. Honestly, you're one of the most dedicated people in the space. Especially in our NFT corner. So yeah, appreciate you, man.
man, like it's really been my pleasure, and don't mention it, man. Like thank you so much for tuning in. Let me get in touch with Henry, send a DM to the NFT cat underscore soul, and congrats on your you and dog. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I've had a blast. Nearly 200 people jumped in, and thank you for your time.
Nah, thanks for having me on, man. All right,
Okay.
I'll see you guys on Discord then.
All right, man. Have a
All
good
right.
one.
You too, man. Bye.